Good morning and God bless. Right, straight into it. I've gone through and watched some of the videos and I can acknowledge that they're not in chronological order. So they're not going 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 years old. That's fine because ultimately it's not about making sure these stories are pinpoint precise in terms of dates and times and things like that. They are just more about accurate experiences in which I went through in my life and using them to educate other people, especially our next generation of young people. So for me, it's fine because at the end of the day, once I get round to writing or finishing my autobiography and a few other bits and pieces that I'll talk about in a few weeks, there'll be time for everything to be laid out like in a roadmap so that it can be read and seen and understood in a proper timeline. This one's it's hard to talk about because I believe, this is the last time in which my retarded head convinced me that assaulting police in a severe manner, not just not just resisting when they place you under arrest and thrashing around. And unfortunately, I used to have this chip on my shoulder and this unwavering belief once I become 14, 15, 16 that I could get away every time. I used to think I can go and just commit crimes, do me thing, and then when the police come, I'd just escape. Like some Brendan Abbott shit. And it's retarded because obviously, not once did that ever happen. Not once. Like, yeah, I may have escaped from houses being raided and cop chases and all these sorts of things. Spot you in the street, spot you in a shop and go, hey, you're under arrest, we need to... And I'd run away. Yeah, that's fine. That's not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to previous examples where I am in the custody of the police or they are in the same room as me, placing me under arrest for whatever reason, and I would conduct myself in such a way that was hostile, aggressive, and extremely violent. Like when I think about my criminal record, and I'd happily share this to outline that I'm not making this up. I think I have 36 pages of prior convictions dating back to 1999 all the way up to 2019. And when you go through those prior convictions and only look at the ones I was convicted for, there is no assaults or extreme violence on my record except for against Ashley workers, detention centre staff, police officers just doing their job, and correctional officers in the jail. So, although I have been portrayed in the past as a violent offender and, some violent person, and this isn't a justification by any means, but I've explained this in previous videos, the only real fights I've ever had out in the community are with people that can also fight, with people that could have just as easily harmed me, maimed me or killed me just as I could of them. That is not me justifying the violence, justifying the incidents. That is me simply outlining that I haven't been out here going out drinking and just attacking people in nightclubs. I haven't been out here in the past just walking down the street, getting a bad vibe or a bad look off someone and assaulting them. Like that was never me and it never was me. So I need to make that clear. But this story, it really, thinking about it, I need to turn that off. Thinking about it yesterday when I was going back reviewing some of these videos, you know I keep saying it and I sound like a broken record, but I forget these things. I'd forgotten these things because of the amount of times I can give other examples that were either more severe or that overlapped this previous experience in severity. So I'd just forget it, like, and it makes me feel like shit because I can promise you the police officers and other people present, they will never forget it. Like, and that makes me feel terrible that I can forget something that I did or engage myself in that other people will never forget. It's just like, it's hard, you know. This version of me has feelings. This version of me has a conscience. This version of me feels regret, shame, embarrassment. I have feelings. That's the difference. Without drugs in your system, you have feelings. Like, and it's crazy because it feels great. Like, I won't lie, it feels amazing to be able to think about something and actually have an emotional response. Actually, my heart starts racing, and then once it stops racing, thinking about the incident, my saliva and my breath pushes down into my stomach, and I start feeling sick. I start thinking to myself, how did you do that? Why did you do that? What did they do to deserve that? Like, it really gets hard for me, but the amount of overwhelming support that I've been shown through doing these videos, that's what gets me through it. Like, when I start thinking, oh, just press stop and don't worry about this one because it's too much on you, I actually think about the people watching it. It doesn't matter how it's making me feel. I think about the people who it affected that day, who haven't been able to forget about it, and it pushes me to keep going. Like, it really does. That's my driving force, knowing that there's people out there, young and old, boy or girl, man or woman, criminal or law-abiding tax-paying citizen, it makes no difference. Whoever sees these and watches these, and especially the people that reach out and say, you know, how good of a job I'm doing and how well these videos are, the things I talk about and how deep I go into all the emotions and all these sorts of things is very helpful. So that's what keeps pushing me to do them. Now, some of you may recall I spoke about on one of the videos where the last time I escaped from Ashley's, I overpowered one of the staff, let everyone out, and 5 of us escaped. Now, because I was actually talking about other things that happened when me and my best mate got sent to the Hobart Remand Centre for the first time instead of going back to Ashley's, and the severity of the things that happened at that remand centre, it overrid the actual police arrest the day that they recaptured me and took me back to the Launceston Remand Centre where my mate already was, simply because of that, because of the things that happened in the days and weeks after the day of being arrested were just so much more severe in my mind, that it overrid the thought of telling this story. But upon reflection, as I said, I think about it and I'm like, you scum. Why did you do that? You could have done serious injury to these police officers and yet you forgot about it. Like, and that's what's the hardest part, is that I hate myself for that, because you can't change people's lives like that, putting them through things or making them have to do things that they just would not have done that day, you know? Either way. So myself and 5 others escaped from the detention centre, and I think I was only out 6 days. Everyone else was caught in their own times, whether it was 3 days after, a week after, whatever it was. But basically, when I was arrested, I was at a friend's place in Ravenswood, the top end of Ravenswood, in the flats on the left-hand side as you go up Waring Street. And yeah, I was there with another person who was a friend at the time. And yeah, out of nowhere, we'd been there probably 30, 45 minutes. And out of nowhere, you could just hear like fences getting jumped over, car doors getting slammed, police officers screaming, Tas police, stay inside the house, don't move, this is a raid, all these sorts of things. Now, because as I said earlier, because I was the sort of person that had myself convinced that, you know, I was big and I was strong and I was tough and I could run fast, climb high, jump better, swim faster, fucking hide good. Like, I just had all these warped distortions of reality in my head about my own capabilities when it come to being a criminal and a man, or I was a young man. I was only 17, but that warped my perception so much so that I had myself convinced that when these sorts of things happened, I could just assault the officers and get out of there, escape again, and live to fight another day. Retarded, I know. Now, on this day, I had picked up an axe handle, a wooden axe handle, and proceed, rather than try to escape straight away. I don't know why I didn't try and get out of the house before they got in the house, but this is what I mean. I was on drugs. I was heavily affected by drugs, and my perception of what was actually happening was warped. So when the officers come inside the house, the first one ran straight past me because I was hiding behind the door, and they were obviously securing the house. And I don't know why, but I decided whoever the second officer was that come through that back door, I was going to strike them in the face with this axe handle, which I did. And I really apologise for that because, as I said, it's not every day that you get smacked in the face with an axe handle, like by someone that's hiding. So I king hit him with it, you know. It's not like he's seen it coming. And, you know, I could have seriously injured this detective, and rightfully so, I got what I deserved. He's a 6'1", 100-kilo detective who I've known since I was a young boy, literally 10 years old, 11 years old. I'm 17 at this point, and one of our state's worst offenders. So I got what I deserved that day. And when I hit him with it, it didn't even drop him. That's how big and strong this man was back then, and probably now still. He literally, once I hit him, he rocked back and grabbed me and threw me across the room, and then they proceeded to, you know, arrest me. That's how we'll put it. They proceeded to arrest me, and obviously I was fighting back, trying to get out of there. We ended up, I believe we broke the glass sliding door inside the house by wrestling inside, trying to arrest me. But ultimately, I was placed under arrest and removed from the premises. I was dragged all the way up to the top of Warren Street because we were right down inside the block of flats off of Munsden Street in Ravenswood, Warren Street, if people who are from here know where that is. And once we got to the vehicle, obviously they undone the door, threw me in the back seat of the car, and they continued, like a couple of them stood around the car, and others were still down searching the house looking for the other offenders who had escaped with me. There was 5 of us, as I said. No one else but me was at the property. So yeah, while they were searching the house, the female owner and occupant of the house had come up and around the block of flats and undone the back passenger side of the door for me, like to get back out and run. I was handcuffed behind my back, and yeah, I didn't get far. I got like a metre away from the car, and my feet were kicked out from under me and slammed back into the concrete and restrained again, playing up still, trying to get away, dragged back to the car, thrown back in the back seat. This time, 2 officers jumped in with me, so I'm now in the middle, resisting, cuffed behind my back, and they're just holding me down, you know, feeding me, trying to stop me from resisting. Once we left Ravenswood, I was, you know, again, I'm heavily affected by drugs. I'm not thinking clearly. That's like, and yeah, I'd obviously taken a bit of a hiding for the things I'd done, rightfully so. If you assault someone in the execution of their duty, doing a job trying to protect the community, you can expect to be flogged, and you shouldn't be crying about it. It's that simple. So we're driving out of Ravenswood, and again, because I was so mentally unwell, I couldn't accept that I'd been placed under arrest. I couldn't accept that I was going back to, I thought I was going back to Ashley's at this point. But little did I know, I was going to the Hobart Remand Centre because Ashley's had just had enough of me. They'd had enough of the escapes, the staff assaults, the sieges, the overpowering of staff to try and escape, all these things. Like, they were just sick of it. And as we were coming down Henry Street in Ravenswood, genius here decided that the best course of action, given we were less than 3 kilometres from the Launceston Police headquarters now, and I knew I was getting locked up, right or wrong, unless something drastic or dramatic happened right here and now, I was getting locked up. Simple as that. Again, I think back to this moment, and I don't know what I thought would have happened or how I thought this was going to pan out, but I knew it wouldn't end well, but I also didn't think it was going to end the way it did. It's hard to think that clear when you're that elevated and you're on drugs, and you can think about what you're doing and you make conscious decisions to. I tried to kick the steering wheel. I was looking, like I was sitting in the middle of the seat looking ahead, and I could see cars coming past us, and we're speeding a little bit. We were probably doing 70, 80 Ks because I was going off. Like, they wanted to get me to that cop shop as soon as possible. So as we come round the last bend of the bottom of Henry Street Hill, I watched about 3 cars coming towards us, and they were all, backed up one after the other. And I made the decision to try and kick the steering wheel and veer us into oncoming traffic. Thankfully, I kicked the steering wheel and I kicked the officer's hand that was driving, but thankfully the officers in the back seat with me, because I'm cuffed behind my back, were able to prevent me from causing us to have a head-on collision with oncoming traffic. People that had probably picked their children. I couldn't see who was in these vehicles. I wasn't thinking about anyone else but myself. And that's a selfish, scummy thing to do when you really think about it, to try and kick a car that other people are in onto oncoming traffic, into oncoming traffic, civilians, people that don't even know what's going on in your vehicle, or that they may die right then and there. And that, yeah, fucking hell. That's just, it's not on. Like, and again, I got what I fucking deserved that day, and rightfully so. Like I said, I don't hold any grudges. I am apologetic. I'm taking full accountability. Like, I'm sitting here now, I wish they'd have pulled me out of that car and stomped on my head 100 times, because that's what I deserved for what I had done that day. Getting emotional. Yeah, I had no regard for anyone else in the world at that point. In that vehicle, in the vehicles coming towards us, I just had no fucks given. And these are why these videos are hard for me, because the thought of doing that now, no fucking way. Do you know what I mean? No fucking way. And obviously, given I had just done something that, could be considered attempted murder on 4 to 5 to 6 people, everyone in both vehicles that I'd tried to kick us into oncoming traffic into, that could be a charge of attempted murder, because when your actions are clear and your intention is obvious and the outcomes are obvious, they could have easily just decided, righto, cunt, that's attempted murder. Like, because if we'd have veered into oncoming traffic, anything could have happened. So obviously, after kicking the steering wheel, they immediately started hitting me and all the rest of it to, stop me and holding me legs and bending me legs up around the backs of the seats so that I couldn't do it again. And because I was resisting so hard, they just said, fuck it, pull over. And we've pulled straight over at the bottom of him. We just got under that bridge, or just before it maybe. But either way, they've pulled over. The 2 in the front and the 2 that were in the back with me stayed. The 2 in the front leapt out, shut their doors, and I don't know what they talked about, but they went to the boot of the car, got out a fire blanket, and then come back round. And I'm not even sure how the 2 in the back done what they done, but they've shifted me into the passenger side back part of the car. The door was locked, obviously, but they're still in the back seat with me. And before you know it, the 2 officers that got out of the vehicle have thrown this fucking blanket into them, like into the back seat of the car. You got to remember, I'm like this, so I've got no way of stopping anything from being put over me. I really have no control in that back seat. And they've thrown this doona over the top of me, and before I knew it, there was multiple cans of police mace being sprayed straight in my face, straight down my throat, and I'm being suffocated under this doona. Well, that's how it felt. If you've ever been properly pepper sprayed, I'm telling you now, it is the most excruciating experience you'll go through. Like if you've been drenched in it, like when I say drenched in, I don't mean just a little that'll blind you. If it hits you straight in the face, you're fucked. For 20 minutes, you need cold running water at minimum. And the whole time you're doing it, your face is on fire, like you've been burnt. Like you are, trust me, it's the most excruciating thing you'll go through. Being properly maced, we'll get to these other stories later, but I've been maced by the police at least 6 times. And we're not just talking, take that, shut your mouth. I'm talking, like if you try to kick police officers transporting you to the headquarters onto oncoming traffic, you're going to wear a full can minimum. I swear I wore 2 that day. And I was being suffocated in the back seat of a car long enough that, like I said, I believe I was going to die that day because, and rightfully so, I should have experienced it that way. It shouldn't have just been a little, settle the fuck down, like you shouldn't have done that. I should have been taught a valuable lesson that day, and I was. But I genuinely thought I was going to die. Like after about 90 seconds, 2 minutes of them, like, because I'm still resisting. That's what you got to understand. I wasn't someone that could calm down easily. I wasn't someone that could just accept my fate, accept that I'd been arrested, accept that kicking the car and oncoming traffic didn't work. I would just continue to get heightened, aggressive, and keep fighting because I honestly don't know why. The only explanation I've been able to give you in all these videos is that I was mentally unwell. I wasn't medicated. I was self-medicating. And in my head, I was one of the most broken, hurt, I wouldn't say scared, but like, you know, I didn't value my life. I didn't value anything but what I believed was good for me, right for me, best for me. So having that chip on your shoulder, it's toxic. And you cannot just, it didn't work, I better settle down now so that I can, you know, get locked up and just have a good time. I didn't think like that, unfortunately. And again, I've already said it, I apologise to the officers that arrested me inside the house and out of the vehicle once I tried to escape from the vehicle. But obviously these officers were also being affected by the mace because they're in the back seat trying to control me, you know, like hold me down and hold this doona over me. And yeah, anyone that's been maced in a room or an open space knows that you can't really get away from it. So the reason they threw that doona over me was because they didn't want to get me back out of the car, because that was a no-no. I'd already tried to escape once after being arrested, so they were like, they must have just worked it out really quickly once they pulled over and said, fuck it, get the fire blanket out of the car, throw it over the top of him and just mace the fuck out of him. That'll stop him. And as I said, it didn't stop me straight away, but after about 2 minutes of them literally pulling this doona, like at points my head was pulled back like that and the doona was flush around my face and I'd been maced. I was begging for my life, screaming like a 12-year-old boy that had just lost his father. I was terrified. I thought they were going to kill me. And as I said, rightfully so, I had just tried to do the same to them. But yeah, I'd been hit with that much mace that by the time we got just 3 kilometres, so 5 minutes later, I was just hyperventilating. They'd taken the doona off me so that I could breathe because I'd broke at this point. I was fucked. And I was crying and I was getting emotional because I couldn't breathe. I thought I was going to die. I was cuffed behind my back. I was choking. And yeah, the whole way there, they were still doing their job and being officers, you know, telling me to calm down. We're going as fast as we can, Kane. You brought this on yourself. Like, mate, just settle down. We'll wind the window down a bit. You know, like they're not going to wind it down so I'll stick my head out there. But yeah, I was panicking. And when we got to the cop shop, they sped in there, ripped me out of the car, dragged me across the floor, and then cuffed me to like they took me cuffs from behind me back because I've stopped resisting at this point. My whole body is on fire. Now, as I said, if you've been pepper sprayed, you ain't been pepper sprayed like I've been pepper sprayed. I promise you that. And it's excruciating. I'm telling you, you can't be maced with police mace, and especially the stuff that they carry, like the uniform officers and detectives carry on their waists. If you get hit with even a quarter of a can of that and it gets you anywhere, and it doesn't even have to get you in the eyes, it will blind you. It will make you feel like someone has set you on fire, put you out, set you on fire, put you out, set you on fire, put you out, and now you're just dealing with the pain of having been burnt. That's what it feels like when you get properly maced. That's not a fucking exaggeration either. I promise you. Don't ever put yourself in a situation to experience it, because you'll fucking regret it. Once we got to the police station, they dragged me out of the car and quickly ran me across the room, the foyer in the back of the cop shop, cuffed me to a pole that was right next to a tap. And yeah, I won't go into details, but I was begging for water, I was crying, I was hyperventilating, I was saying, I'm going to die, I can't breathe. And, you know, you got to understand, although I said they were doing their job at points, you know, trying to calm me down, when you're dealing with a 17-year-old boy, I was like a man, but 17-year-old child still, it's, I think in the vehicle they were a bit more receptive to the fact I may die, because they were putting doonas over me and they were choking me with the doona, and they know what it's like to be sprayed. But once they got me to the cop shop and they realised I wasn't going to die, and I was just being a sook because like I'm saying, I'm burning alive, I'm fucking burning alive. Fuck, my throat's still sore, Rafferty, from screaming about your victory the other night, mate. They just, they let me sit there for probably, it felt like 10 minutes. But as I said, they know how it feels. And I was cuffed to this pole and I could not see. That was the other thing. Like, I cannot see. So I didn't know that there was a tap right there. And even if I did, I couldn't get to it with my hands to turn it on. But yeah, basically, I was left there to burn alive for about probably 5 minutes, it would have felt like. But it felt like more like 10. And obviously, they would have been standing there also getting the pepper spray, especially the ones that remained in the vehicle with me to keep me under control under the fire blanket. They would have been there doing the exact same thing I was doing, only they didn't get it sprayed directly in their mouth, straight up their nose, in their ears, in their eyes, and have enough of it sprayed on them in such a confined space like this, where it's running down your shirt, it's running down your butt crack, it's getting on your private parts, and anywhere this shit goes, you're burning alive, I promise you. Like, it's fucking horrible. And so they would have been fixing themselves, you know, bottles of water under taps, trying to get rid of the burning sensation themselves, which would have been 25% compared to how I was burning, because I was drenched in the shit. But moral of the story is, don't ever put yourself in that position, and don't ever put someone else in harm's way by conducting yourself in such a way when they're only doing their job and you're being a scum. Because, as I've explained in other videos, no matter how drug fucked you are, and I take that back, well, I haven't finished saying it, but no matter how drug fucked and crazy and warped your perception of reality is, it's their job to control you, confine you, and imprison you. So make no mistake, they will do whatever it takes, and they're only going to stop once they've controlled you, once they have you under arrest. So if you think that hitting them with bits of wood, kicking the steering wheel of the vehicles they're driving, assaulting them with your fists head, don't matter. If you think any of that's going to end well for you, you're some kind of special, I promise you that. And I acknowledge I was fucked in the head. Now, they give me, like I said, 5 or 10 minutes of agony. I sat there screaming, thrashing round, cuffed to this pole, just screaming at the top of my lungs because I was burning alive. I swear that's what it feels like. And yeah, for the next, I don't know, 2 hours, because I was drenched in it. You got to understand, this shit don't just wash off and you can see again, or wash off and you stop feeling like you've been set on fire. It, like, depending on how much you've been hit with, it lasts for hours. And the moment you come out of cold running water or anything like that, you're back on fire. Your whole body feels like you've been actually burnt. And I've had bad burns on my body after this incident. So trust me, burns and the pain of being on fire isn't even as bad as this shit. I promise you. Even the weeks after, when your burns are blistering up and recovering, it's not as bad as being pepper sprayed when you're maced properly. like with big amounts of it, where it's running down your inside, like of your clothes and things like that. Like I said, you get a little spray in the face, yeah, it'll blind you, you can't breathe, you choke, but you can still talk and say, oh, fuck, that shit burns, fucking rah. You get properly maced, you feel like you're on fire. Try and imagine it. You can't hold a conversation because you fucking feel like someone set you on fire. For the next 2 hours, they dragged me into the remand centre and cut my clothes off me, obviously. So I was naked. I was still cuffed. But because I was begging for water, begging for the burning to stop, begging all that, all this shit. And this is the tragic thing, is that I'd been maced 2 or 3 times prior to this. So, like, how retarded was I to think that it was going to end any other way? And yeah, for the next 2 hours, probably longer, 3 hours, I would be taken from my cell in the remand centre to the showers and left to lay under the water, handcuffed, naked, and it was like heaven, I promise you. But every time I'd think it was over, so I'd spend 15, 20 minutes, half hour in the shower, and they'd say, all right, Kane, that's enough. You got to go back to your cell now, mate. Like, it's finished now. I'd get up. They'd dry me because you can't see for ages. And I'd walk back to my cell. After being in there 5 minutes, as soon as my heart would start racing, I'd start thinking about being locked up and everything that had just happened. It was like my body temperature would raise again straight away. Hey, fucking back on fire again. Like, it's horrible, I promise you. But yeah, and for those of you that have watched the videos, the previous ones, this is when, like I said, me and my mate then got taken to the Hobart Remand Centre, and all the shit that happened in that story, this happened right before I went there. So escaped from Ashley's, let everyone out, overpowered the staff member, 5 of us escaped. 5 or 6 days later, this happens, and then 5 or 6 weeks later, I break out of my cell in the remand centre. 2 weeks after that, we have that riot, so on and so on. So as you can see, it's not these aren't isolated incidents, and that's the hardest thing for me to accept, is that I think I was suicidal. I think I was constantly going through a panic attack my whole life while I was on drugs and while I was living that life, because when I say I could be set off, I would set myself off into such a mind state that life and death weren't the same thing. I didn't have the bearings, the common sense, or the ability to actually, as I said, think about anyone else's safety, consider my own safety, or think ahead. I could think ahead in the sense of, I'm going to do this and then I'm going to run away, but I never really played out things how you should. If I kick that steering wheel, for example, and we don't crash and I don't get flung from the car because none of us had seatbelts on and all these sorts of things, what's going to happen? It wasn't like that. I used to just think worst case scenarios where and I do apologise again to everyone that was involved in that day, and especially the officers that I assaulted and whose lives I put in danger, because that's fucking wrong. That is so fucking wrong. And yeah, like, as I said, to sit here and think about that now and talk about it now, it's unfathomable to me. Unbelievable. I would never do that again. Under any circumstance would I put someone else's life in danger, because it's not always the person that you think you're hurting, harming, or trying to take their life in serious examples like this who's going to really be affected, is it? Like, if something tragic had happened that day, all these men probably had partners, children, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, best friends, people that relied on them, people whose livelihood depended upon them going to work and coming home every day and getting paid every week. Like, it's fucking sickening. Like, I hate the things that I've done, and that's why it's massive for me to be able to sit here and talk about it, because it fucking eats me alive. Like, and I need to keep moving forward and focusing on the things that I can control, which is using my experiences and my positivity around these experiences, because although they are negative, toxic, and criminal and scummy acts, if I just don't tell these stories and I don't use myself as a crystal clear example of how not to fucking conduct yourself and live your life, very few people do. Yes, we have some amazing personalities and individuals on social media right now. I won't sit here and name these gentlemen, but, you know, there's actual gang leaders. There's people that have lived terrible lives just like me. TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, their Facebook reels, they are doing exactly what I'm doing in their own ways, trying to educate the younger generation and make sure that people don't think because they see dickhead down the road with a nice car and he wants to give them $1,000 to do something fucking retarded. These men aren't out here glorifying that lifestyle. They're being crystal clear about the repercussions and the fucking problems that come with living that life. That's what's most important. You can sit there with a therapist, a fucking psychologist, a psychiatrist, a youth worker. It don't matter. If they don't absolutely and unconditionally understand what living this way and living that life and doing these kinds of things does to you as a person, they can't articulate it to you. They can't sit there and explain it to you in a way that's going to change your life path, change your decisions just an hour after you walk out of that room. Anything these people that don't have that lived experience and haven't been through shit, these young people or old people, because I didn't learn until I was fucking 30. So trust me, there was obviously many times in the detention centre and the prison where things were put in place. I attended programs, I'd done courses, and these smart, intellectually able people would sit there and say perfectly worded English sentences and examples and talk about studies and data and statistics, and I'm sitting there thinking, shut the fuck up. Hurry the fuck up. I want a certificate and I want to get what I want from this. And it's not what you want from me from this ain't what I want from this. And that's toxic. And it's outdated. It don't work. Yeah, some people go through them courses that haven't had extreme lives, but they're not the ones that fill the prison systems. They're not the ones that are the recidivist offenders who have 100% recidivism rate, meaning every time they come out, they are 100% guaranteed to reoffend, take drugs, ruin more people's lives, and go back to prison. So the purpose of these programs, when you're talking to people who are lifelong offenders, who have core beliefs so deeply embedded in them that they will put their own fucking life and other people's lives on the line out in the community to do things and get away with things and do what they think's right for them and do what they want to get what they want. These are the offenders. These are the young men and women that need to have the most attention paid to them. And I don't mean that in a, because you're a worse offender, you need more attention. But at the end of the day, I think anyone should be able to acknowledge this. If you have 500 people in a prison, 48 of them are shoplifters stealing from Coles and Bunnings and billion-dollar corporations, then you have 150 who are domestic violence, drink drivers, stuff like that. Domestic violence shouldn't be in there with drink driving. I'll take that back. But you get what I'm saying. When you look at the seriousness of offending, I don't think a shoplifter really, unless you're in there assaulting security and threatening staff and doing things like that, I don't think a shoplifter should be sitting in the same program as someone that steals cars, rams cop cars, does ram raids, does more serious of offending. And then on the same scope, an offender that is only a property offender, they're out there stealing and scheming and doing all these things to make money, to just go and get drugs and live life. They ain't on the same level as the next type of offender, which is basically the kind of offender I was. Someone that has no limits when it comes to criminality, unless it's heinous, disgusting shit that people should be put in prison for their whole life for. So for me, it's just like, there's got to be a balance. And at the moment, we do not have it, especially here in Tasmania. You can go to prison for your first time for fraud and be thrown in a division with cunts that are fucking killers. Like, when I say killers, I mean So there's got to be better systems put in place at the end of the day. Now, I know I'm going off topic, so I'll leave it there. But yeah, moral of the story is like, these incidents are not isolated that I tell on this channel. That they are not one-offs. They are not like, oh yeah, he had a bad day today, but then he was good for 6 months. Because I could go from being extremely violent and unpredictable and putting people's lives at risk in the community, police included, to being locked up, and within 6 weeks I'm doing the exact same thing in a correctional facility. Getting violent, aggressive, destructive, putting people's lives at risk. This ain't, again, anyone that knows me knows I ain't fucking glorifying this shit. I glorified it for fucking 20 years. I drew and led so many people down that path. I turned so many of my friends into lifelong drug addicts. I traumatised so many people that I thought I cared about, that I said I loved, let alone the people that I did not know, let alone police officers and correctional and detention staff, let alone anyone that meant absolutely nothing to me, but they were an obstacle to my freedom, my finances, my fears. So for me, it's more about identifying these patterns and showing people that, explaining to you all that it's not, these aren't isolated incidences. This is how I was from 14 onwards. I was considered uncontrollable. I was considered irrational, unpredictable, violent, aggressive, manipulating, all these things. And some people may think that sounds cool, the younger generation, but I promise you now, when you become the sort of fucking young man that I become and man that I become, when you're put in an environment where you're surrounded with people that have that exact same like-mindedness, you're a target. You are not someone that gets put on a pedestal. You are not someone that people are going to go, oh, you're Kane Richardson. Fuck, you're a cool cunt. When I got to jail, I had the biggest target on my fucking back. I promise you right now. We'll get to them stories a bit later, but you got to remember, I went to jail at 17 and a half. Do you think there's grown-ups in there, like grown men, killers, like animals, people that have lived their whole life like I have, and longer, and welcoming me like I'm some fucking superstar because of the retarded life I've lived? Absolutely not. They wanted to bash that ego and that mentality of me being a bad cunt, clean the fuck out of me. Like, they didn't want me to think, yeah. So it's a double-edged sword, like polarity. There's good and bad. There's like, oh, it's crazy. Duality, sorry, not polarity. But yeah, I just want to make that clear. It is no life to live, and eventually you lose your way. You can't even think about the future. You can't even put other people's lives and safety before your own impulses, before your own, oh, I've got to get out of here, do anything. Like, that's fucked up. So many people, and I'm glad I'm not one of them, so many people have lost their lives, and worse than that, cost other people their lives or standard of living or livelihood by seriously injuring them or disabling them or traumatizing them, giving them PTSD, making it impossible for them to go places, or, by having that behavior, by having that mindset, by being able to just go, oh, fuck, me, what do I do? Anything. That's fucked. All right, what are we at? 43:40. Have a good day, everyone, and God bless.